Good morning. Welcome back to the Planet Doug Behind the Scenes podcast for Thursday, November 28th, 2024, 6:30 in the morning. As always, I'm inside my hotel room. I'm staying at the J Hotel Masjid, India in Kuala Lumpur. I've stayed here in the past. It continues to be the best value for me in the city. They have nice single rooms here. It's the best place I've been able to track down. And I've learned over time that their rooms up on the third floor are nicer than their second floor rooms. For some reason, maybe they're newer or they were recently repaired. I don't know. But anyway, this time I got a room up on the third floor instead of down on the second. Very comfortable up here. Got my kettle plugged in, my Indonesian nuclear kettle. It's not quite boiling yet. Once it is, I'll be enjoying a cup of coffee. And one weird thing on my mind right now, something to do with technology. I wanted to announce in this podcast the day and the date, and I often don't know what the day and the date is. So I look on my phone or something, but then lately I've been asking an AI, like ChatGPT. I just asked it, what is the day and date in Malaysia right now? And it gives me an incorrect answer. It says right now it is Wednesday, November 27th in Malaysia. But it's not. It's Thursday, November 28th. So I'm curious how the AI can be wrong. Is it basing it on a different time zone or something? Is it like if you're in the United States right now, yeah, it's still Wednesday, November 27th, but here in Malaysia, Malaysian time zone, it's Thursday, November 28th. So is it my phone that is tricking ChatGPT? Is our overlord AI intelligence wrong? And of course that makes me think, well, if it can be wrong about something so simple, it's a good lesson that you better be careful using AI because it can be wrong about anything. If it can be wrong about the date, feels like that's the one thing a computer should be an absolute expert at, calculating a time zone. For me, as a dumb human, I can get confused about that because it says here Malaysia time is, UTC plus 8 hours, and you're busy calculating, okay, what is UTC? Now I got to add 8 hours, and I don't know, some countries have daylight savings time, so it's an hour off, or I don't know. I mean, weird things happen with time zones around the world. And as a human being, we can make mistakes, but you'd think a computer is going to get it right. But I've noticed that AI often gets it wrong. I use ChatGPT these days, and I still use Perplexity, and both of them get the date wrong for some reason. So there's something weird going on in there. Maybe it's my phrasing when I ask, what is the day and date in Malaysia right now? Does that confuse them? Anyway, that is something that jumped out at me. And of course, no matter what I'm doing these days, technology is always a component because I'm in the thick of getting ready for flying to Jakarta. As I've talked about at length, I'm meeting up with a Planet Doug subscriber and a mystery benefactor who's going to be presenting me with a brand new laptop. And I'm flying to Jakarta this Saturday, November 30th. I've got like a noon flight. And my mystery benefactor also booked 2 nights for me at the airport hotel, the same hotel where he's staying. So we're going to be at the same place, and then we can do the laptop transfer. Oops. I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing here, and I just stirred my coffee so vigorously I spilled it all over the little desk here. So clean up on room 303. Technology for this trip, it gets more and more complicated. And one thing that occurred to me this week is that there are a lot of services, a lot of things you need to do to go to another country that is being transferred to an online system, which is fine. I'm all in favor of that. But it occurs to me that people flying to another country now, how do they know it's required? So I'm thinking in particular of, say, a customs form. In the old days, you get on the plane and then you're flying to the new country, and then the onus is on the airline. At least it used to be that at one point a flight attendant would go up and down the aisle with a big bundle of paper customs forms and then say to people, or something like, or an immigration arrival form, something like that, and then say, do you need, anybody need one? Do you need one? Do you need one? And then the flight attendant hands you the customs form and the immigration arrival card, and you have to dig out a pen. And of course, half the people on the plane don't have a pen, and everybody's sharing pens. And then you fill out your customs form and you fill out your arrival card for immigration. And that's how everybody ends up doing it. And then a few people, of course, forget, or they don't notice. And then when they arrive, they can fill out the forms in the arrival hall at the airport. But now these things are online. So Malaysia, for example, has what they call the MDAC, the Malaysian Digital Arrival Card. And everybody who flies into Malaysia has to go online, find the MDAC, and fill it out. And it's fully required. You can't not do it. But let's say you're just an average person and you booked a flight to Kuala Lumpur because you want to take a holiday. How do you know about the MDAC? I'm like, unless you're really digging around and searching, it's not like you're going to stumble across it. Someone has to tell you, oh yeah, there's a digital arrival card for Malaysia that you have to fill out. You're booking everything yourself on your phone. You're not dealing with a travel agent anymore. So there's nobody who's going to tell you unless you find out by yourself. And that's very true for Indonesia, which got me thinking about this because my friend Daryl recently went to Jakarta, and then he was giving me some information about how, because I haven't flown into Jakarta for whatever, 20, 30 years. So it's the first time for me. And I was asking him, like, if I went into town, what is there a train that goes into town? What's the airport like? And then he was telling me, oh yeah, I filled out my health card and my customs card online. And he said he would send me the links. So he did. So I have the links to the health arrival card and the customs digital arrival card. But then I wasn't able to fill them out because, just like with the Malaysian MDAC, you have to do this within 3 days of your arrival. And if it's a week before your trip, you can't do it yet. You have to do it within 3 days of your flight. So I haven't been able to do it yet, and I'll do it today. But I've been in and out of Sumatra a dozen times in the last few years, it feels like. But I've never filled out an online health card. It's never come up. And I've never done an online customs card for Indonesia. It's also never come up. When I flew into Sumatra, nobody asked to see anything like this. But apparently you're required to do it. But again, how do you know? I mean, you probably would call me an expert in flying into Indonesia. And even I didn't know about these things. The last time when I took the ferry, they actually gave me a paper customs card. So I guess the dock in Tanjung Balai, they're not fully updated. They don't have the digital system yet. But what if they did? And I just arrive, and I arrive at the dock, and they're like, oh, show us the QR code for your customs arrival declaration. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of this before. And now you're stuck probably because you don't have a SIM card and you don't have internet access. And these are all these things that you have to do before your trip. But how do you know about them? Well, so today being Thursday, I'm now within the 3-day window. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday is my flight. So, whoops. Fiddling with my microphone. Sorry about that. So today, one of my tasks for today is to fill out the customs form and the health form. And I've had to make other arrangements So I like to have money in advance. So I'll be getting money today, and then I'm going to be changing it to Indonesian rupiah so that I have money for when I arrive. So that's another task, but that's kind of a normal task, nothing special. But I don't really want to be in Jakarta. So even though I'm going to Jakarta to meet up with my mystery benefactor, immediately after that, what I want to do is go back to Sumatra. So I have to make all of those travel arrangements. And I've been working on those. I did something a bit differently this time. I needed to book a flight, basically, a flight from Jakarta to Medan, the Kuala Namu International Airport. And there's so many ways of booking a flight these days. You can do it by going directly to the airline's website, I guess. You can use these aggregators like Skyscanner, which gather together flights from all the different carriers, and you can sort them and list them by cheapest to most expensive, by all the different variables that you can sort them by, and then you can choose a flight based on that. And this time, for whatever reason, I've never done it before, I just booked the flight through Agoda. I thought, I was on Agoda because I needed to book a hotel room in Medan at the same time. And I noticed that Agoda has flight booking capability as well. And the payment system for me and my credit card is all set up on Agoda, and it usually works. So I thought, well, why don't I just, instead of going to a brand new website or using the airline website and then running into trouble with my bank accepting the charge, that sort of thing, I thought, Agoda seems to work. Why don't I just do it there? So then when I started looking at the flights, and then Agoda said, oh, would you like to bundle this with a hotel reservation? And again, normally I wouldn't do things like that. I like to do things one at a time. You start bundling things, and then you start ending up getting in trouble, I find. Sort of like a multi-tool. I prefer to have individual tools, because if you take a whole bunch of tools, like a Swiss Army knife, and combine them all into one, well, each individual tool is usually not very good. They have to sacrifice something in that tool in order to make it a multi-tool. So that's just a principle that I follow. But in this case, it said, oh, would you like to... And I was in the mood to get things done easily. I just want to get things done. No muss, no fuss. So they said, oh, would you like to bundle it? And I'm like, oh, yeah, come on, let's do it. Let's bundle. Never done it before. So I ended up booking a package, which included my flight and my hotel reservation. And I booked a room at a hotel where I've stayed before. It's near the train station, or relatively near the train station, called the Wisma Sederhana. Oh, did I book the right place? Yeah, I think so. I was moving really fast, which is unusual for me. Maybe I better double check while I'm thinking about this and see whether I booked the right place. Because, yeah, I just sort of saw this photograph, and it looked familiar, and I thought, yeah, that's where I stayed before, and I just went click, 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 and I was done. But now I'm wondering whether I got the right place or not. Oh, yeah, Wisma Sederhana Budget Hotel. I'm looking at the picture on Agoda. Yeah, that's in Medan. Okay, that's the right one. Phew. My heart's beating a little bit faster right now. Yeah, there's so many details to take care of. It's so easy to make a mistake. So anyway, I paid one price, and they sucked me in basically with a lie. I'm sure it's not true, but the way these online booking systems work, they show you a price which they tell you is the real price. And then if you bundle, then they show you how much money you save. And I can guarantee you I didn't actually save that much. But they say, if you bundle, you'll save 170 ringgit. And that's a significant amount of money. So I thought, okay, I want to save 170 ringgit. But of course, had I booked each individually, I'm pretty sure it would add up to the same price that I just paid for the bundle. I did not save 170 ringgit, I can guarantee you that. But yeah, I do wonder how all these companies can get away with that. It's sort of the corporate version of clickbait. If you book hotel rooms on Agoda, every single room you book, you feel like you saved 75% because they always have the price up at the top and then they put a big red line through it. No, you don't pay that. By booking through Agoda, your hotel normally would be 800 ringgit per night, but on Agoda, it's 45 ringgit. You save 750 ringgit, and they can tell you that. And even though it's complete nonsense and has no basis in any kind of reality, there's probably some technical, legal reality where they can make these claims. And I guess it makes you feel better that you think you're saving money, but no, none of this is true. And yet companies can just say these things even though they're not true. We as human beings, we can't lie. We get in trouble if we lie. But companies, they can lie all the time. They can lie as much as they want. Doesn't really make any difference. So I bundled my flight and my hotel. A little bit more expensive than I thought. I thought I'd seen, I guess it's a question of, again, they show you the cheapest flight to get you to click on their website or click on their option. But then, of course, once you look at the cheapest one, that's usually not one that's going to work for you because it leaves at 3 a.m. and takes a 12-hour layover in Kuala Lumpur. And you get all these things. Okay, that's why it's cheaper. And by the time I chose my flight, I chose one that leaves at about 2 in the afternoon, 1 or 2. Because I'm staying in a hotel at the airport. I just want to be able to maximize my enjoyment of the room. So I want to stay all the way until noon checkout time and then hop on the shuttle bus, takes me to the airport. So 2 o'clock and arrive. I think it's a two-hour flight, something like that. I'm sipping my coffee, by the way. Which is why I'm pausing from time to time for a sip of coffee. But that went surprisingly well. I do this weird thing. If you asked me straight up, I would probably tell you, no, I am not a spiritual person. I am not a superstitious person. But I get so nervous when it comes to doing anything financial online, like even anything as simple as booking an airline ticket and charging it to a credit card. I just freak out mentally because I'm so scared of things going wrong. I'm so used to everything going wrong. So now whenever I finally click on I get all the details filled in, the hotel room, the dates, the flight, everything's done, and I click on the final pay button. I end up closing my eyes and I start thinking about the universe. Very, very weird, but it's almost like I'm raising my arms to the entire universe and sucking in as much good luck and good fortune as I can and funneling it into my phone so that the payment goes through and I don't have any troubles. And recently I saw this YouTube video online talking about how something like 4 billion years in the future, the Milky Way galaxy is going to combine with the Andromeda galaxy, which is the nearest galaxy to the Milky Way. And our two entire galaxies, they've plotted the course of their travels, and they're going to collide. And there are all these simulations online you can see where they're predicting what is going to happen to each galaxy. Because obviously, it's not like a solid mass is going to run into another solid mass. Galaxies are very loosely arranged series of stars and planets, and there's lots and lots of space in between them. So basically, the two galaxies are going to pass through each other. But by doing so, the gravitational force of each is going to alter and change the shape. And I love watching those simulations. They're quite something to watch. And so I watched one just recently, kind of a new model for what's going to happen when these two galaxies pass through each other. And while the payment was being processed, I was imagining what I saw in this simulation of the two galaxies passing through each other and this crazy thing that happens to both of them. And then I was using that sort of almost like a Zen thing. I was preparing myself for the inevitability of my payment not going through. And I would have to spend the entire day making phone calls and calling my bank, and they're going to block my bank account and my credit card account. I'm going to have to get them unblocked. These things used to happen to me all the time, to the point that I'm panicked about it now. But anyway, by thinking about the galaxies and the scale of the universe, it's like I'm putting my own little life into perspective and realizing that it's not a big deal. And if the payment gets blocked, just relax, take a deep breath, and just work the problem until you solve it. And it's on the scale of entire galaxies passing through each other, it's not a big problem. So I just sort of try to adopt this state of mind, preparing for the worst. And then in this case, the worst didn't happen, and the payment went through. Though I'm a little bit confused because I think I've never used Agoda to book a flight before. So after that was done, I wasn't sure what else I needed to do. I thought I would get like a downloadable, like when I book on Air Asia, after I book the flight, there's a sequence of events, and you can check in for your flight. You can download your e-boarding pass. But none of that showed up with Agoda. I got an email, and it gave me kind of an itinerary. But beyond that point, there was nothing. There was no, click here to check in, click here to get your boarding pass. There was none of that. So I'm going to have to go back into the system today or tomorrow and see whether I missed something. How do I do all that? It's a domestic flight, so maybe I'm already checked in. It's not as complicated as a international flight. I never take domestic flights, ever. Once I'm inside a country, I always travel overland. So this is quite an unusual thing for me. I know the modern way is to fly everywhere. People just bop all around inside a country. They fly everywhere. But I just have never done that. This may have been my very first domestic flight ever. I must have done one before, but I can't think of any right now. Yeah, back in the old days, nobody could afford that. You land in Nepal and you're in Kathmandu and you want to go to Pokhara to start your trek through the Himalayas. Well, you hop on a local bus that nearly ends your life, a rickety thing that travels for 72 hours and nearly kills you. That was how everything worked back in those days. It would never occur to anyone to fly from Kathmandu to Pokhara or anywhere, but that's how even backpackers get around these days. Everybody can afford to fly. Yeah, it's a brave new world. But then there are some other details to do with technology, because when I arrive in Medan at the airport, I want to take the airport train downtown. And the last time I did this, I ran into a problem because you can't use money. You can't use cash. So I showed up at the airport and I went to buy a ticket for the train, and I wasn't able to buy a ticket because they only accept e-wallets and cash cards. And of course, as a new arrival in Indonesia at that time, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a local bank account or a cash card or an e-wallet. So I was staring at the ticket machine, and I was stuck. And I was looking around for an office, like a counter with a human being. It's like, I can't use the machine. Just like in the subway system here in Kuala Lumpur, you can go to the machine and get your token. But if you don't want to, you can go to the window and there's still a human being there, and you can say, 1 token, please. And then you can buy it from a human. But I looked around and it didn't exist anymore. And I spoke to people that work for the train in Medan, and they says, no, you have to buy it from this machine using a debit card. There's no other option. And of course, they list probably half a dozen, maybe a dozen different payment options. It's not like they're restricting it to just one and making it difficult for everyone. A normal person would be able to use one of those options at least, but none of them were available to me out of the dozen that were listed there. I mean, I had a Malaysian Touch and Go e-wallet, and I have a PayPal account, and that's pretty good for me. I'm amazed I'm that advanced these days. But so those are my only two options, and neither one was available. And even if it accepted Touch and Go, I don't think I can use it in Indonesia. My Malaysian Touch and Go is a special foreigner account, and it's restricted to being used inside Malaysia. That's what I ran into in the past. Maybe some things overseas now you can use it. I'm not sure. But anyway, Touch and Go was not listed as an option. So I know in advance I'm going to be stuck again. So I'm trying to figure out. Also, these trains are fully booked all the time now. So if you don't buy a ticket online in advance, you're stuck. You won't be able to get on the train. So I sat down yesterday and I remembered I still have an Indonesian e-wallet. I got one on one of my phones and it's set up. I have an account. Everything is there. But of course, I have no money in it. Had I been thinking while I was in Indonesia, I probably should have put money into that e-wallet so it would have been available to me when I was here in Malaysia. Also, my phone number has changed because when I set up that e-wallet, I was using my old Indonesian SIM card, and now that one is gone. It expired, so I got a new Indonesian number. So here in Malaysia, I opened up my OVO e-wallet. That was the only one I could open back then. I don't think it's a very good one, but I opened up OVO e-wallet. And I thought, well, okay, now what can I do? But I was stuck right out of the gate because they have to send me a security code to my phone number. And the phone number on record with OVO is my old one, which is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So I thought, oh, can I add my new phone number? But in order to do that, they have to send you a security code, which means I'd have to put my Indonesian SIM card back into my phone here in Malaysia, just temporarily, change the phone number to the new one, get a security code by text message to this number, and then I can change the phone number on my OVO e-wallet. But I didn't dare do it because I thought I would get stuck, because I think the only way you can get that text message is if you're physically in Indonesia. I don't think it will arrive here in Malaysia, but I'm not sure. So that was more technology I had to deal with that I didn't understand. And I didn't do anything. I didn't finish it. I went on to the KI Access by KAI app, which is the Indonesian train system app. I have that on my phone. I know how to use it. And I navigated to the airport train, and I saw the train I'd want to take, and I was trying to reserve a seat on that train, but I got stuck at the payment part. I can do it until I get to payment, and then I had no way to pay for it. So I have to take another run at that today. And if not, maybe I can do it when I arrive in Jakarta, because I'll be there for 2 days. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I won't even bother doing it here. What's the point? I'll wait till I'm back in Indonesia, in Jakarta, and my SIM card is back in my phone. The account is up and running. While I'm there, maybe at the airport, I can top up my OVO e-wallet, and then I can try to book this train. Yeah, that's what I'll do. But then my adventures aren't finished yet because I'll be in Medan and I want to go back to Tanjung Balai. That's where the ferry goes, and that's where my touring bicycle is, back at my hotel in Tanjung Balai. So I also have to get transportation from Medan to Tanjung Balai. And I'd like to go by train. So again, I wanted to book a train ticket in advance, and then I was unable to do so because I have no way of paying for it. The last time I did this, I booked the train from Medan to Tanjung Balai. That was that whole long story. I shot a video about it. I talked about it at length, where I went to the train station, like the actual train station in Medan, where the train leaves from, where you board the train, and there's ticket windows everywhere. A train station, just a normal train station. And I went up to the ticket window. I stood in line and said, I'd like to reserve a seat on the train to Tanjung Balai, and they wouldn't give me one. They wouldn't sell me one. They said, no, you can't do that here. It's like, well, what do you mean you can't do that here? If you can't do it at the train station, where can you do it? And they says, no, we can't sell you a ticket on that train. You have to buy it through the app. It was just the most ridiculous thing I've ever encountered. So at that time, I went through the whole process. I downloaded the Access by KAI app, and then I opened an account. That was very complicated and confusing. I finally got it done. And then with the help of someone at the train station, I was able to book the ticket, and then I had to go to a convenience store, and at a convenience store pay for the ticket, get the receipt for my payment, and then return to the train station, show them the receipt that I paid for it, and then they were finally able to give me a ticket. Again, it's the way the modern world works. It's ridiculous, but that's just the way things are. But anyway, right now I'm not able to book a train ticket either, so I guess I'll be able to do that in Jakarta. I'll check today. I didn't check the schedule for the trains, so I'm not sure if there's a train every day. I'm not entirely looking forward to that train because it is a very old train, and I don't like the seats because the seats are grouped in two, like seats of four are physically facing each other. So I know like there's some, like most trains around the world, like even the trains in Canada, you've got normal seats, 2 people per seat, and they're all facing in the same direction in a row, just like on an airplane. But they can spin around. So if you're a family of 4 and you want to sit with your children and you're facing each other, you can ask the train attendants, and they will pull a bunch of levers and push a bunch of buttons, and they can turn the seats around so that 4 seats are together in a group. But this train in Indonesia is like that, except the train seats don't move. You can't spin them around. They're permanently fixed, 4 at a time. And they're very tiny seats, and they're very hard. It's like sitting in a church pew where you're forced to sit upright at 90 degrees, and you just can't sit there for very long because the person's knees in front of you jam into your knees, and then the only way to sit facing this total stranger, I mean, you could interlace your knees, right? You could separate your knees, and then theirs can slot into yours like 2 people holding hands or something. But of course, you're not going to do that with a stranger. So you have to take both of your knees and angle them to the right at an awkward angle, and they have to angle theirs to the left, and then your knees cross each other. I guess with Indonesians, they're shorter than I am, so they can actually sit across from each other, and maybe they have better posture than I do. But with my longer legs and the way I like to slouch to get comfortable, things like that, it's very, very uncomfortable. The last time I did this, I just went to the dining car. I sat in my seat for a little while. There were 3 women in the seat with me, and I sort of got the feeling that they weren't that comfortable sitting with this giant, hairy male from Canada. They were very tiny, petite Muslim women, and I felt like my presence was not really welcome. So, or maybe I was projecting, and maybe it was me. I was the one that wasn't feeling comfortable. But in any event, I went to look for a cup of coffee, and when I found myself, there was a coffee car, and turns out you could stand there drinking your coffee, and occasionally there was a seat available. And I just stayed in the coffee car for the entire trip. I didn't sit in my seat at all. And I assume that's what I'm going to do this time as well. So anyway, that's what I've been doing lately. Booked the flight from Jakarta. That's all done. What is the airline now? Let me check that as well. Normally, I'm very involved in all the details. So I really would like to know what is the best airline, because I had so many options. And oh, there it is there. From Jakarta to Medan. Super Airjet. I'm flying on Super Airjet. And I could have flown on Lion Air. And there were a bunch of other low-cost carriers listed. And then there was more expensive airlines. And, of course, I was looking at the low-budget ones. And my choice seemed to be between Lion Air and Super Airjet. And I didn't know which one to choose, which one was better. And normally I would want to make the best choice, and I would do a lot of research and figure out and dive into the details. But I got so much to do these days, I just can't be bothered. And I just picked one. I said, okay, Super Airjet leaves at 2 o'clock. I'll take that one. And then I did find out a little bit later on. I asked ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT what compare and contrast Lion Air with Super Airjet. And they said, they're both low-budget airlines. They focus on lowering the price as much as possible, and they don't offer a lot of services, and the seats are small, and it's crowded, and okay, low budget. But then they said that Lion Air caters to the general population, but Super Airjet, they focus on young, hip travelers, the digital generation. And I don't know what that means in terms of an airline, but it turns out I booked the one for the young, cool, hip kids with their TikToks and their whatever. Anyway, that they said that's what the difference is between these two airlines. So I thought that was pretty funny. So I have to keep my eyes open and find out exactly what makes Super Airjet hip and cool for the digital young folk of today. I think I fit in with that crowd anyway. I'm pretty digital. I try to be anyway, more and more so, even against my will. I'm turning into a digital human being. But anyway, this morning I'm meeting up with Daryl, my friend Daryl, at Yutki for breakfast, and a couple of other YouTubers are showing up. The international big shot, he's in Malaysia right now. He's joining us, and expat Pete, he's based in Kuala Lumpur permanently, another YouTuber, and he is going to be joining us for breakfast. So there's going to be the four of us, and it looks like I'm going to start getting ready. I have to start heading in that direction, and I'll keep recording this audio journal as I walk to Yutki. I thought about switching over to video again. That's a bit of a longer story. I'll save that story for when I'm walking there. But this journal entry, this behind the scenes podcast is being recorded only with audio. I'm speaking into my Rode Wireless Go. And I'll talk about why that is. And I'm thinking about going back to video, but I have to wait until I get my new laptop. And once I have my new laptop up and running, and then like editing video should become much, much easier, then maybe I can go back to shooting this as a video. But I'll talk about that in a minute once I'm on my way to Yutki to get my chicken chop and iced cham. All right, I'm on my way to Yutki, outside now, walking down the street. Luckily, not raining. I think it rained during the night, but it's nice and clear right now. Yeah, I was just saying that I was thinking about going back to shooting with video again, and that was inspired. Well, I'd always loved to shoot in video. Video is always better than just audio, but I stopped doing a BTS video for the Planet Doug behind the scenes channel simply because lack of time. I can record, lots of time to record, but it's the editing and the exporting and the uploading for video. It just took way too long. It just became a full-time job, and I had no time to do anything else. And that wasn't the point of the behind-the-scenes videos. They were supposed to be just very easy and simple to do and just be fun and casual. So anyway, I stopped doing those when I was in Vietnam. But I was hanging out with expat Pete that I already mentioned the other day. Met up with him and dropped by his house, actually. And we're hanging out there, and he's plying me with cup after cup of instant coffee because he knows I enjoy it well. And we're talking about camera gear and Patreon and YouTube, all these things. And the whole behind the scenes podcast, video, journal, the whole topic came up. So I just went to take a look at my old behind the scenes YouTube channel, because since I'm not really posting anything there lately, I haven't really even looked at it. But because we were talking about it and we were sitting there, I got out my phone, and on YouTube I just went over to my old BTS channel. And as soon as I saw all the videos there, I felt so nostalgic. I had this reaction like, "Aw, I love those videos. I enjoyed doing them." And yeah, I missed doing them. And yeah, it just made me think, yeah, video is nice. So maybe in the future, once I get my new laptop and I get things moving more efficiently. Ooh, we got a pedestrian crosswalk with a walking signal. Might as well take advantage of it while they're here. They're few and far between. So yeah, it just got me thinking about shooting video again for these BTS podcasts. See what else has been going on. Now that I'm walking through the city streets, half my brain is now focused on my surroundings, making sure I don't get run over or trip or do something crazy. So I don't have as much brain power left over to think about what it was I wanted to talk about. So what else has been going on? I think I talked about all of my arrangements for going back to Indonesia, back to Jakarta and then Sumatra. I think I've come to the end of that particular discussion. Something that I did yesterday that is YouTube related, I went shopping, because my number one accessory that I use constantly is the GoPro Jaws. It's my hand grip that I like to use, the GoPro Jaws Flex Clamp, and I've had one for years, and it was breaking down. All the different parts of it were breaking down. In particular, the rubber on the jaws had become brittle and just broke off. So the whole idea with the jaws is you can clamp it to almost anything. And the jaws are very, very tight. And then the rubber gives you a nice grip, so you can attach it to almost anything. But with the rubber gone, it doesn't really hold on anymore. So I'd be in places like a night market in Indonesia, and I would clamp the jaws to a plastic chair or something just to film myself. And then as I'm talking into the camera, the jaws would spin around and smash the camera against the ground because the rubber grip wasn't there anymore. So that was one problem. And then when I was in Port Dickson, the actual mounting apparatus at the top snapped off. So the GoPro quick release buckle system broke off basically. And I had to put everything on using tape. So I was mounting things, and then I'd have to take a roll of tape and wrap it around. And it was still kind of working. I could get away with using it. But I decided yesterday that enough was enough. It was time to spend the money to replace it. And in a way, not getting a new one was kind of dumb. It was sort of like saving, what's the expression where you're, saving pennies to lose pounds? Because I didn't want to spend the money on a new grip, but by using the old grip, there was a very good chance that I was going to end up breaking my camera. So, yeah, okay, so you saved a little bit of money not buying a new grip, but then you broke your $500 camera. So, not very wise. So I decided to bite the bullet and go buy a new one. I hopped on the MRT, went down to the Camera Valley computer store, or camera store. It's on the Kajang line, out near, it's on the way to the Kuala Damansara terminal station near One Utama, out in that direction. I have to go to Surian station, and then it's a short walk from Surian to Camera Valley. I like going there. The guys there recognize me when I walk up to the door. They look up and smile because I've been there so many times. I bought my first camera there, and I bought so many microphones and accessories there. I like it. They don't mind if I hang out for a few minutes, and instead of being a simple 1 minute purchase, I like to draw these things out. I like to hang out for a little bit, chat about camera gear, and yeah, they like to do the same. So it's a great place to hang out. So I went there and I bought the new GoPro Jaws, 230 ringgit. What's that? I don't know how much that is in US dollars, $40 or $50 or something like that. I'm very glad I have it in my knapsack right now. And if I were shooting video with my GoPro, that's what I'd be using. It's the main thing I like to use to mount the camera. So that was one big adventure there. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos recently from other YouTuber traveler types, and I'd like to talk about those for a few minutes. But that's going to come up in a little while because I'm just about at Yut now. So I'm going to put away my microphone and get ready for breakfast. So when I come back, it's time for YouTube stories. So I've jumped ahead in time, and I was going to talk about YouTube videos like other travel vloggers that I follow online. But before I get there, I have some catching up to do with stories of Planet Doug, because I met up with a couple of YouTubers over breakfast. I met Daryl from Wander Eats, Bill from the YouTube channel International Big Shot, and Peter from the Expat Pete YouTube channel. We met at Yutki, and I had my usual chicken chop and iced cham, and we all had a nice chat about all things going on in our lives and in the world in general. And of course, a lot of talk about YouTube and camera gear, microphones, that sort of thing. So yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then I had some other errands to run, and I wasn't sure if I would do them today or tomorrow because my flight out is on Saturday. So that leaves me today, Thursday, and Friday, and those are the only days I have left. And it feels like I always have a lot to do, a lot more than I expect. Or maybe my individual errands just end up taking a lot longer than I think all the time. But anyway, in this case, yeah, a lot of technology involved, and it just got me thinking more and more about the modern world and how complex it appears to have gotten. Maybe I'm just imagining things, and maybe it just affects me more than other people, but a simple thing like going to Indonesia now seems like an incredibly complex task with all the technology involved, all the things that, I mean, the technology makes a lot of it easier. You can do things now that you could never do or have done in the past, which is great. But there are a lot of steps involved. So the first thing I wanted to do was get some money. So, and that's usually a very stressful occasion for me. I did get some money from an ATM. And then I went down to KL Central because I know of a money changer there that I don't know whether it's a good one or a bad one. Every time I go to a money changer, I always feel like I'm going to the wrong one. I see other people with like 15 calculators and ledger sheets, and they got stacks of money, and they're busy wheeling and dealing and trying to get the slightest edge, the slightest advantage. So they're looking up at the board and they're seeing the rates, the sell rates and the buy rates, and they're doing the math to find out whether they should change their money here or go to another money changer who might have a slightly better rate. But my brain is so befuddled these days that I can't do the math even. Like when I look at the buy and sell rates and I'm trying to figure out how would I even use those rates to do a calculation to figure out how much I might or might not get. I can't figure it out, at least not in the heat of the moment. I'd have to write the numbers down, and then I'd have to sit down somewhere over a cup of coffee and figure out the math. It's like, okay, so what do I multiply by what? And what do I divide by what to figure out how much of each currency I get for what other currency? And I can't even do it. So honestly, I pick a money changer based not on the exchange rate, but on the ease of going there and how crowded it is and the ease of communication and the simplicity of the transaction. So KL Central, it's indoors, it's secure, and so that's where I go. There used to be two of them there, but now one of them has gone out of business, so there's only one left. So I went there, and then I don't know if other people have this experience. I'm sure everybody thinks it only happens to them, but I'm pretty convinced it only happens to me, that I always pick the worst lineup. It was so funny. I was at the money changers, and it was almost completely empty. There was like one person at each window. There were 3 windows. And I thought, oh, cool, it's not so busy today, even though it's a Thursday, getting close to the weekend, and it was around lunchtime, so I thought it'd be really, really busy, but there was only one person at each window. So I wasn't standing in line or anything. I went off into this quiet corner where I could open up my knapsack, and then I could get out my phone, get out my passport, get out my money, and do everything sort of safely over there and figure out how much money I'm going to change. I would check the currency, like the exchange rate online, and I'll get a rough idea. So say if you want to get 5 million rupiah, Indonesian rupiah, how many Malaysian ringgit is that? And then I would just get a rough calculation in my head. So I know that if I go to the window and that person gives me a number that's sort of in the ballpark, not dramatically higher, then I'll just go for it. So I'm there in the corner, and I've got out the money, and I'm counting it, and I've got my passport, and I've got my phone, I'm doing my calculations, and I'm getting everything ready. And just as I'm about to stand up to get into line, 10 people just, boom, showed up. There are all these, they look like migrant workers to me. I don't know what country they were from, but they're here working in Malaysia. And then just boom, the second before I was going to get into line, every line suddenly had 3 people in it. And they all were migrant workers, and they had very confusing and complicated transactions, like very precise amounts of money to change from one currency to another. And they're doing like Western Union, they're sending money, they're doing remittances. Anyway, it was a very complicated situation all of a sudden. And I was just like seconds late. But I happened to find myself at a window that moved very quickly, and then there was one man in front of me, just one man between me and getting my money changing done. And whatever this guy was doing, it took forever. I mean, oh my gosh, I wanted to tap the guy on the shoulder and say to him, like, dude, what are you doing? Are you investing in 18 corporations and setting up a non-profit and buying money for all of them? And I mean, what are you doing up there? I mean, just slap down your ringgit, get your Japanese yen or Thai baht or Indonesian rupiah, whatever you need. Just do the exchange and get out of the lineup. But this guy, I have no idea what he was doing, but it went on and on and on and on. Another transaction, more calculations. Notebooks are coming out, calculators are coming out, discussions are taking place, counting is taking place. It was just, come on, dude. Why are you in my life, and why are you the one person in my lineup? Meanwhile, now the other lineups are moving really quickly, and I keep thinking I got to get out from behind this guy and go join another lineup. But I knew that as soon as I left, he would be finished, and then now the person in front of me in the other lineup is going to have like a dozen transactions. So basically, what I'm saying is I can't win. Every lineup I pick will be the worst and the slowest of all of them. And there's nothing I can do about it in life. So anyway, I just waited patiently until it was my turn. And I'm just trying very carefully to keep track of everything because I get a little bit flustered in these situations. And I think it'd be very easy for me to walk away and forget my passport, forget money, drop something and lose my wallet, do something, forget my phone. I try to go through the whole process very methodically and make sure I don't make any mistakes. And I think I managed to do it. So that now is all taken care of. I have some Indonesian rupiah ready to go for when I arrive. I don't have to worry about that. And I have some Malaysian ringgit left over. So it's not like I'm going to run out of money while I'm still here in Malaysia. I think everything's good to go. And I still have my passport, and I have my bank card and my phone. I don't think I lost anything. So that's good. But then what I needed to do was print out a couple of photocopies because I have my Indonesian e-visa. And I don't really need a piece of paper, but I find it's handy. Indonesian immigration seems to appreciate it if you hand over a paper copy of your visa rather than handing over a tiny image of it on your smartphone. So I wanted to print out a copy of my visa, a copy of my flight out of Indonesia, and my hotel reservation, my confirmation booking for Jakarta. So I wanted to get a copy of those three documents. And there's a print shop right in the mall, right beside, it's on the second floor, the floor above the money changers. So that's also why I go there, because I know I can change money and get printouts at the same time. But it gets a little bit complicated because this print shop, well, first of all, I put all of my documents onto a flash drive, and I was just going to hand over the flash drive and say, okay, the first folder, I made sure that to name the folder so that it's the very first one on the flash drive, and then they can plug it in and open up the folder and then do this, do this, do that. But it doesn't work that way anymore. They want you to email the documents to them. So I was standing in line, I had my flash drive ready to go, but then I saw the big signs everywhere that says, we can only print out documents that you send us by email. And then here is our Gmail address. So I thought, oh, okay, I guess I have to do that. So now I'm getting out my phone and I'm trying to send them an email and attach the documents to that email. But again, just like the last time I did this, I had assembled all the documents from all around my phone into the same folder on my flash drive. But now in the heat of the moment, I had to redo all of that and somehow attach these documents to an email. And of course, that wasn't very easy to do, but I eventually got it figured out. So I did that, sent them the email, but then there's also big signs everywhere that says they are cashless. They will no longer accept payment in cash. You have to do some sort of a debit card or online transaction. So I see all these QR codes everywhere, and I'm taking out my phone. The only thing I can do is touch and go. So I've got my touch and go open, and I'm scanning all of these QR codes. Scan this one, scan that one, scan that one, scan another one. And they all reject me. They all say error, unable to process, error, unable to process, error. I'm getting nothing but error messages. So now I'm thinking, oh, for Pete's sake, now they're busy printing out my documents, and I'm going to have to pay them. But just like last time, I'm not going to be able to pay them. It's just not going to work because whenever I scan their codes, my system won't accept it. But then it turns out all of those QR codes were for something else. For Touch and Go, you don't scan their code, they scan your code. And then the woman eventually explained that to me. And then I was like, oh, okay. So then I held up my code, my phone to her, and she scanned it. And then I managed to process payment, and I got my documents. But I mean, I don't know, it was just really complicated. A lot of technology involved. And I can imagine someone less up to date than I am. Again, I'm thinking of, say my parents' generation. If you sent my father in there to get something printed out, there's not a chance. All the technology you needed to understand and have access to in order to conduct that one simple transaction, no, he wouldn't be able to do it. And I know a lot of people from an older generation would be completely flummoxed by that. But anyway, so then I left from there, and then I had a moment of panic because I couldn't find my flash drive. I've got this little 32 gigabyte flash drive that I use for all of my transfers from my phone to another phone to laptop to tablet, going into a print shop. I carry around this flash drive, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Wasn't in my pockets. I have a special pocket in my knapsack where I keep things like this. I couldn't find it there, and I'm like, oh, I left it there. But anyway, I panicked for a while, and then I finally found it. It was still plugged into my phone, because in the end, I couldn't find all the documents on my phone, but I realized, oh, they're all on my flash drive in a folder already. So I plugged in the flash drive to my phone, and then I copied the documents from the flash drive to Gmail to send it to them. But then after I was done, I just put the phone back in my pocket, and I forgot that this tiny flash drive was still plugged into the USB-C port on my phone. I was like, oh, thank goodness. Now my heart, I mean, you might as well hospitalize me after one of these sessions, because when I'm going up to an ATM to withdraw money, I'm so nervous, my heart starts pounding. And then I go up to a money changer, and I'm so nervous about that, my heart starts pounding twice as fast as it was when I was at the ATM. And now this whole printing out documents, trying to figure out how to copy it, to attach it to an email, to send it to them, Touch and Go, I scan your card, you scan my code, which code do I use? I'm getting nothing and my heart is pounding away, after running a couple of errands, I either need to be hospitalized or I need a week-long vacation by the time I'm done. And then when I walk away, then my heart rate starts coming down to normal. And suddenly it's like, oh, my flash drive. I lost my flash drive. And boom, my heart starts pounding again. Like I have another heart attack. I have like 15 heart attacks a day lately when I think I've misplaced something. I have so many things I feel like I'm keeping track of. But that is the modern world. But as far as I know, well, no, I'm not done. I was going to say, as far as I know, I'm done everything I need to do. But no, that's not true, because I still need to register with the Indonesian Health Declaration, and I have to do the online customs declaration. And then, of course, I have to pack. And part of packing these days is to get all of your ID and your documents. You have to get them straightened out depending on what country you're in. So, for example, while I'm in Malaysia, I need my Touch and Go card. But when I'm in Indonesia, I don't need it anymore, so I need to put it in a safe place. I have a Starbucks cash card for Malaysia. I haven't used it at all since I've been here, but I do have one, but I only need it when I'm in Malaysia. So then I take that out of my wallet and put it in a safe place. And I have to get out all of my cards and apps and SIM cards for Indonesia. Like, you basically have to do a physical transformation and a digital transformation when you go from one country to another. So that's all going to happen tomorrow. So, but I'm basically there. I don't think the important things are done. I've got the e-visa, I've got money, I've got a hotel reservation in in Jakarta and Medan, then I have a flight to Medan. And that's as far as I can take everything right now. So yeah, everything's good to go. And then tomorrow will be a packing day, organizing day, and then I should be ready to go. And then, of course, what I just said, customs and health declaration. So we are slowly getting there. And then, yeah, when I was coming back, one thing that struck me, I went down to KL Central to do all of this. And KL Central, when you get closer to the weekend, especially around lunchtime, it is so packed with people. When you're right around the train station area, you go from the MRT or the KLIA express train or the local KTM commuter trains, the whole transportation hub, and then there's a set of escalators that go up to the shopping mall. That area is just jammed with people. And I guess we've gotten used to that, but it occurs to me that most of my life, I mean, I've watched a lot of science fiction in my life, a lot of science fiction movies and TV shows like Star Trek. And then Star Trek, for example, the old classic Star Trek. I remember an episode where they would go to a planet that suffers from overcrowding. And then when they land on that planet, in the studio, they try to create an image to portray a crowded planet. And I remember watching this episode when I was a kid and thinking, oh man, look at that. Can you imagine living on a planet that has so many people on it? And back in those days, that was an outrageous thought to ever see a public space with that many people in it. It would just like basically be unheard of. It's a place that crowded, that overpopulated, is part of the world of science fiction. But now, it's everyday life. So at KL Central, I found myself in a place that was just as crowded as anything I've ever seen in a science fiction show, or like in a Twilight Zone episode that's showing an overcrowded place. That back in those days, they show it on TV as if it was like a ludicrous idea, like, wow, look at this insane dimension where the world is so crowded. And it was presented as something that could never possibly happen in the real world. And yet I run into places exactly like that these days. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So crowded. I thought about getting something to eat at KL Central, but there was just way too many people there, way too many. So I just hopped on the MRT and I came back to my neighborhood. And right, lunchtime is a good time to get food, especially right out on the street outside of Masjid Jamek. And I found a place where they were just selling kind of a economy rice sort of thing, where I just got rice and some chicken and a whole bunch of veggies and some sauce and things like that. Came to 10 ringgit for a big filling lunch. So that's a pretty good deal. And now I am back at my hotel, and my plan is to, I have a whole bunch of other things I need to do, but at the moment, I don't need to go outside anymore, at least not today. I think I'm done with the outside world. Unless I want to go out eating again, but this one meal I just had, I think that's going to last me for the rest of the day. I had the chicken chop for breakfast. That was a pretty big meal for me. And then my lunch box was a pretty big meal. So, yeah, I think I'm good for the rest of the day. So, yeah, those are all the stories on Planet Doug right now. And I guess I will wind up today's little Planet Doug podcast with my YouTube stories. I'm not going to go into them in any particular depth, but I'm following a Canadian moto vlogger. His name is Eric, and his YouTube channel is called Una Moto. And the latest video is another thumbnail of his motorbike where he's removed the rear wheel because more flat tires. The poor guy has had so many flat tires, it's crazy. I think the name of the video is These tires are cursed. Yeah, it's kind of funny that he just started on his journey. He's in his home country at the very beginning, and in theory, you'd think this would be the easiest part of his entire journey. He's planning on going around the world, going down some of the most challenging terrain in foreign lands, and you would think, starting off in Canada, this is supposed to be the easy time for him, but it's turning into a very, very rough start for him. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's what he says right on the thumbnail, rough start. And he's had 3 flat tires in the first 2 days. And he's meeting other people that are also traveling around that part of British Columbia on motorcycles. I guess the road he's following is a very scenic route, very well known, and a lot of people take motorcycles along that road following a river. And these people have helped him out because they have patch kits and things like that. And then then a lot of people are leaving comments on his video, a lot of people that do a lot of motorcycle touring, and they say to him, I've been riding a motorcycle my entire life for 40 years or something like that, and I've never had one flat tire. Or people say, yeah, I went on a round the world journey for 3 years on my motorcycle, and I had 0 flat tires for the entire trip. Lots of people are saying this to him. And he's like got 3 flat tires in 2 days. So, and it's not easy taking one of these, the rear wheel off a motorcycle and removing the tire and then getting the tube out and then putting it all back together again. It's complicated enough on a bicycle, but it looks like it takes a lot more muscle power on a motorcycle. So, yeah, I really feel for this guy. I do hope things get easier for him. But he seems to be enjoying himself. He's doing a really nice job on his videos, too. And I came across another YouTuber recently. He's a Nigerian man named Austin Tukwa. And he seems to be based in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh, actually. And on his channel, he does a lot of interviews. So he sits down at a table with 2 boom mics, and he interviews expats and asks them, like a lot of Europeans, a lot of Americans, Australians, people like that, who are now living in Cambodia, and then he interviews them and gets their story about what are they doing in Cambodia, what is their job here, and where are they from, and how did they get from their home country to Cambodia, and of course, how do they feel about it? What is it like for them living in Cambodia and comparing it to their home country? And he does a pretty nice job of it. He's been doing it for a while, so he's sort of got the technology figured out. He uses a couple of different microphones and sets up 2 different cameras. And for my money, he's not the best interviewer, but he doesn't need to be, because all of these people that he's interviewing are pretty chatty. So he just has to ask them one question, and then this foreigner, this expat, will talk for 20 minutes straight. And he never has to say anything else. It'd sort of be like interviewing me. You wouldn't have to work very hard interviewing me. You could just ask me a question like, so, tell me about your life and how you ended up shooting videos for a YouTube channel. You could ask me that one question, and an hour later, I'll still be talking. So it's like you don't have to prompt me with follow-up questions if you don't want to. And I think a lot of the expats that he's interviewing are similar that way. But one thing I noticed with Austin, he does have this weird habit. I've watched like 3 of his videos, and then the foreigner, because of the way their story is going, they will talk for a long time about a certain topic, a subject. But then as soon as they stop talking about that subject, Austin will ask them the question about that same subject. I don't know why he does that. It's like he's not repeating his question. He hasn't asked the question yet, but the foreigner already answered it. So like Austin might ask the foreigner, so why did you come to Cambodia? And then the foreigner will talk about why they came to Cambodia, but then they'll talk for 15 minutes about arriving in Cambodia and everything that's different about living in Cambodia, and go on and on and on and on and on. And then as soon as they stop talking, Austin will say, so, what is different about living in Cambodia? And then the foreigner kind of looks at him and is like, just repeat everything I just said. So it's almost like Austin isn't really listening to them, because he has a list of questions and he's moved on to the next question in his list, but he isn't really paying attention. So he didn't really notice that the interviewee had just been talking about that. So I find he's not really that engaged in the back, and he doesn't really have a back and forth with the person he's interviewing. So I think his interviewing skills could be improved, to be honest. But anyway, I've enjoyed watching a few of the videos, though, to be honest, even what the foreigners are talking about isn't that interesting to me, because it's always the same story. And it's also my story. It's the story of almost every expat now. And it's a very common one now, where life in Canada, life in the UK, life in a lot of Western countries has gotten almost untenable. It seems to me, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me that part of the world is falling behind in terms of technology, and yet it's getting more and more and more expensive. So like if you're talking to somebody from the UK who's living in Cambodia, and you say, well, what do you think about living in Cambodia as opposed to living in the UK? You can pretty much predict what they're going to talk about. Everything that's terrible about living in the UK now, everything from the standard ones like the horrible weather, to how expensive everything is and how all you do is work all the time. And then they'll talk about Cambodia, it never rains and the people are so friendly and there's so much variety in the food. And, they're all going to say exactly the same thing. If you ask me, what do you like about being in Southeast Asia? I'm going to say all the exact same things that all these other foreigners are going to say. So it's kind of it's repeating the same story over and over. Talk to an American, and then, what do you think about living in Cambodia? What are the good things and the bad things compared to living in the United States? He'll tell a story, and then the next foreigner will tell the exact same story, and then I would tell the same story. So there's not a lot of variety there. But of course, every person, every expat is coming from a different environment. So one, for example, the one I watched recently was an American, a young man who was a professional football player, like football as in soccer, not American football, but European football. And then he played professionally in the US, but then he was scouted by the Cambodian national team. And then he came to Cambodia, and now he plays for the Cambodian national team. And he had some interesting things to say, because football is not that popular in the U.S. It's, in the U.S., the popular sports are basketball, baseball, and American football. So when he plays soccer, he's used to the stands being almost empty and there's nobody cheering or anything like that. But then when he started playing in Cambodia, suddenly the stadiums were jammed with people and the crowds were singing and dancing and shouting, and everybody was excited. And it was just a lot more fun for him to play in Cambodia than in the United States. So that was kind of interesting. But anyway, if you want to look him up, that is Austin TUF A16. And I put something on Patreon about him, a little bit of a link on my Patreon account in the Lively Links collection. You can see a link to Austin TUF A16's interview of this American soccer player. And there was another Itchy Boots video, 2 or 3 of them actually. I'm not going to talk about them in depth. They're pretty standard. She's in Turkey. But the one thing I noticed is that she's driving through some really beautiful mountain ranges. And I get the impression that she very carefully Like she did a lot of research to make sure that she rides down scenic roads. So I think she planned her trip very, very well so that every day that she's on her motorcycle, she gets a video of a beautiful river, a canyon, mountain ranges, things like that. But as always, I'm not very excited about the clickbait. One of the videos, she was following this a road going down a river through a narrow canyon, and they had to cut a lot of tunnels. So it was a very interesting ride and very beautiful. And in the video itself, it was no trouble at all. The road was in perfectly good condition. I don't think it was paved, but it was a perfectly fine road. And then it curves along and goes in and out of these tunnels. And she starts at the beginning, rides through the canyon, comes out the other side, and then spends the night in a hotel in a city somewhere. Nothing happened. And yet the title of the video was something like, "Was this a mistake? Impossible to turn back." So, the video title was implying that she ran into, I was thinking, wow, what happened? Landslide? The road was blocked. Like a landslide in front of her, a landslide behind her, or maybe the road got worse and worse and worse, and she's wondering, oh man, I made a big mistake, but now that I can't fix it because I can't go back, there's no way to turn around, and now I'm really stuck. But it turns out that none of that happened. There was absolutely nothing in the video that was any problem at all. No landslides, nothing difficult, no challenges, zero. So the title of the video was completely a lie, basically. It was just pure clickbait. And then the video today, I haven't watched all of it yet, but I think the title of the video was like, they told me this was the most dangerous road in Turkey. And to be honest, when I read those video titles, it makes me not want to watch the video. I see the title and I'm like, I know you're just lying to me again. So I don't like being lied to. So now it actually makes me reluctant to watch the video. Maybe for other people, they see that exciting title and it makes them click on it. But for me, it has the opposite effect. But yeah, anyway, it's no big deal. I talk a lot about this clickbait, even with other YouTubers, and they understand what I'm talking about. But most people I talk to, they don't really have a problem with it. They just dismiss it like, well, it's marketing. It's like having an article in a newspaper and you try to make the headline as dramatic and exciting as possible. But yeah, not a big fan of the clickbait. And then her videos now seem so simple to me, so simplistic. I've talked about this before. The first second of the video is her on the motorbike. It just starts with, all right, here we go. And then she's riding the motorbike. Then you get the beautiful scenery. Then you get the drone shot. Then you get the music. Then you get arriving at the hotel. And then the video is over. And yeah, it works. People love those videos. She gets 500,000 views at a minimum per video. A good one will go up to 1 full million views. So you can't really fault her strategy. She knows what people want to watch. But at the same time, I can't help but notice that there's nothing to do with Turkey because she does not say anything about Turkey. So the fact that there's Turkish people, you wouldn't know because you never see any other people. Turkish language, Turkish food, Turkish history, none of that comes up at any point. It's basically riding a motorcycle through a scenic mountainous area. Yeah, and there you go. And then the next day, the next video will be another drive through a beautiful mountainous area. And yeah, nothing wrong with that. But I do prefer, like Unamoto, this Canadian Eric. I like his approach because he is providing a lot more detail about the challenges of the road and all his flat tires and trying to get food to eat, and then he has to cook the food because he's camping out a little bit. And he needs to get water, for example. So where does he get his water from? And he's following a big river, But rather than get the drinking water from the river, which might have more pollutants in it, he looks for a creek, like an actual mountain stream coming from down from the mountains. And then that's where he'd get his water from, because there's less chance that that creek, that stream, went through a populated area. So, so he'd fill up a 3-liter, go down to the creek and fill up a 3-liter bag, put in a chlorine tablet to purify the water just in case. And then, so he shows stuff like that, the logistics, and I appreciate it. And I like his music a lot better. The Eric from Unamoto. I think he chooses really interesting music for his drone shots and his scenic shots. I'm not a big fan of the Itchy Boots symphony orchestra, like over the top dramatic music. I don't really like that music that much. Yeah, Eric has a little bit more imagination in the music that he chooses. And I think that is the end. That brings me to the end of today's little podcast episode, my behind the scenes journal. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to shut down here and settle in. I'm going to do some more work on Patreon and make a cup of coffee. So, as always, thank you for hanging out with me, listening to me and all of my thoughts and all my little adventures dealing with the complexities of the modern world. And I hope you come back in the next one, and I'll see you then.